Hey guys, welcome back. So today we're out at the range to talk about the Beretta Cx4. And the reason we're doing the video is because I've had a lot of requests for people asking me my opinion about the gun. Historically speaking, I've not really had much interest in the gun, and it was just simply because it didn't really scratch any particular itch of mine. It's seen very limited military and police use around the world, and it's more or less a just a fun shooting gun in my opinion. It's not something that has some sort of military pedigree to it, which is generally what I gravitate towards. So I've shot them in the past, things like that, but I never really had much interest in them. And then they kind of went away for a while. They were mostly available in black or black only originally. And then I think it was last year, one popped up in copper, this one that was flat dark earth. I happen to be a fan of flat dark earth. And so I grabbed it to shoot it to see what I thought of the gun. I've had it for over a year and done quite a bit of shooting with it. And I want to talk about that in today's video. Some of my takes on this gun are a little bit different than other people's opinions. I've watched a number of different YouTube videos that sing this gun's praises, and again, I have a slightly different view of the gun, so that's what we're going to talk about in today's video. But if you enjoy the content we produce here at the Military Arms Channel, guys, please consider becoming part of our Patreon family. That's how we primarily fund here at the Military Arms Channel, so we can continue to bring you honest, as unbiased as humanly possible information that we can. There is a link in the video description below. Follow that link. You'll get early access to videos like this one. You'll have direct access to me. I answer all private communications, along with some other perks. Again, there's a link in the video description below. With that being said, let's get started with today's video in the Cx4. Over the years, you guys have seen me use a lot of primary arms optics, everything from red dot sights to magnified optics. And why do I do that? Well, over the years, they've offered very good products for a very fair price. They have fast shipping, outstanding customer support, and that's why you've seen me using those products for so many years. If you guys would like to pick up a magnified optic like you see on this Daniel Defense Mark 12, you can pick up an optic like this one. Just put it in your cart over at pa.com or primaryarms.com, and if you use the code MAC at checkout, MAC at checkout, you'll get a free scope mount with your optic, and that goes for any Primary Arms branded optic. If you pick up an optic that has an integrated mount, use that code MAC at checkout, and you'll get a free Kill Flash ARD for that optic. So please swing by and check out primaryarms.com. Let's take a closer look at some of the features of the Cx4. Now, this is an ambi gun. It can be set up for right or left-handed use, and we'll go over which those components can be swapped to left-handed use. Starting off on the rear of the gun, we have a butt pad here. There are spacers available that can extend the length of pull. We have sling mounts here, which are strap sling mounts, and then a sling stud down here like you'd find on your grandpa's deer rifle from 1960. They did do a refresh of this gun. This is the updated version, and absent from the refresh is the implementation of QD mounts. I think that was rather poor choice on Beretta's part, so you're going to have to find a strap sling to rock this thing with. Moving forward, it's a lot of polymer used throughout the construction of the gun. Moving forward, we have the thumb hole stock, gives it a very distinctive look to it. The thing came out in around 2003. The thumb hole stock really doesn't interfere with the ergonomics or the comfort of the gun, but it is there. I've also seen people convert these, and I think they look pretty sharp converted as well with this thing removed. Moving forward, let's start on the left-hand side of the gun. We have a magazine release right here in the same spot you would typically find it for a handgun. This is one of the ambi components. It can be switched to the opposite side. Here we have the bolt release and bolt stop. Right now the bolt is locked to the rear position. I can push down on that and you'll see the bolt will go home. When the bolt went home, the charging handle went home. That's because the charging handle reciprocates with the gun's firing. This is an ambi component. It can be moved over to the other side of the gun during disassembly and reassembly. When we pull the bolt to the rear and lock it to the rear, you'll see this little protective cover come out, and it kind of sort of blocks the ingress of debris or whatever from getting in from the left-hand side of the gun. And that's because this is an ambi component. You can switch from right-hand ejection to left-hand ejection. The bolt release will not be one of those ambi components. It's absent from the right-hand side of the gun, and there's no provisions for it to be able to be moved. And then we have a simple cross-block safety, which is move it to the left for fire, move it to the right for safe. Rear sight, apertures. we have a long range and a short range aperture. So you can flip it one way or the other. On top of the gun, we have an aluminum 1913 rail. This is bolted to the polymer of the upper half of the gun. Most of the construction of the upper is polymer. There's only a few metal components like where the barrel interfaces with the polymer upper and stuff like that. Other than that, this makes extensive use of polymers. Going forward out here, you'll see that there are two little screw holes. That's because there are pick rail attachments that are available that will screw into those two little holes. I've put one on the left-hand side of the gun, and I have one of the new metal Enforce pistol lights on it. So you can either leave it bare and flush, or you can put pick rails out there. The front sight is adjustable for elevation and windage, and is also something you can fold away. But you see the protective ears around it, so your windage adjustment is done right here, and your elevation adjustment is done by either making the front sight go up or go down. So it can fold out of the way for use with different types of sights. I'm not sure I understand this because it really won't interfere with much, and it's protected anyway, so kind of weird. Speaking of weird, we have another sling swivel out here in the front versus a QD arrangement, but this sling swivel you can push in. When you push that in, you got this little thing here that slides out, if I can get a hold of it. And you can put a light right there. That's what it's intended for. Kind of an interesting solution. And then moving out the end of the 16-inch barrel, you'll see there's no threads. And again, with the update to the gun, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. Why no QD mounts? And why don't we have threads? Because today, people are buying a lot of silencers, and with the new e-file system, with silencers being able to be transferred to the new owners in a matter of weeks versus a year or more, you're going to see a lot more silencers coming out and being used by more people. And it seems awfully short-sighted for them to do an update to the gun and leave that out. One of the other updates that they did to the gun that I don't like is the inclusion of this fencing around the safety. Earlier guns, this would be absent, and you'd be able to easily reach up there and push that cross-block safety on or off. Now it's fenced in such a way that you have to break your grip to come back to get your finger up here to push on it. It'll make a loud audible click. Takes a little bit of force. That puts it into the fire mode. Also, there's like a little bump here on both sides of the receiver. I'm assuming that's some sort of an index for your firing hand to keep your trigger off the finger and something for you to feel. On the other side, the exact same fencing is present. And so when I go to put the weapon on safe, I don't care how long your thumbs are. I have long thumbs. You're not going to reach up there to that safety and get it. I typically use my non-firing hand. I come back and push it to the safe position with my non-firing hand. Less than ideal. I would have liked to have seen something done differently there during the refresh. That fencing doesn't really cut it for me. All right, let's take her apart and see what makes her tick. There's no magazine inserted into the firearm. I'm going to pull the bolt to the rear, make sure the chamber is empty, and now I can start the disassembly process. There's a push pin that's present on both sides of the gun, and it can be pushed either direction. It's non-captive, and this is how you take the gun apart. Pull this pin across and out, and then just take your thumb, push on the back of the sight tower, and the two pieces will come apart. Now it's interesting to note that the top half and bottom half ride on a rail together, right there. So you can see how they engage. So they ride on a rail of polymer. And then to take the bolt out of the gun, I'm going to pull it rearward and kind of wiggle this around. It kind of fights with me. I always struggle with getting this little pin out. For whatever reason, it doesn't line up right for me. There we go. And then once you get the pin out, you can pull the bolt out. And look at the size of that sucker. So the barrel rides through the bolt all the way back here to where the breech face is. This is what's commonly referred to as a telescoping bolt. This is nothing new. We saw this with the Uzi, where a lot of the bolt mass overhangs the barrel. Same thing with the MAC-10 and other small arms designs over the years. So this is pretty normal, just a big hunk of steel for a simple blowback mechanism. Here you can see the extractor on this side. This, of course, is where it will eject. On top, this is the recoil spring. And over here, this little tiny spring protrusion, as the bolt comes to the rear and starts to bottom out in the back, you see how that pushes forward? That's your ejector, and you can see it moving on this side of the gun. This is the little block that keeps it from ejecting out the left-hand side. If you notice, there's a sheet metal spring, if you will, that's clamped, holding the recoil assembly in place, holding the ejector assembly in place, and also holding the extractor in place. Pop this off, and that's part of the conversion process to making gun left-hand ejection. So, very simple. The upper, if you look inside, all polymer. The bolt rides on polymer rails, not steel rails. And here's your barrel, and you'll see the screws right there where the pick rail screws to the polymer upper. The only other metal in this upper assembly is forward here that's molded into it, which is what the barrel is attached to, so that this bolt can literally slide over the barrel. And you can see the long rail section here on both sides of the bolt. And you can see how it rides on those rails, polymer rails inside the receiver, and how it rides over the barrel. That's your barrel right there. Very interesting how that is designed to work. And that polymer on metal fit makes for some resistance. I can definitely feel it doesn't slide. It doesn't feel very silky smooth. All right. On the bottom half of the gun, pretty conventional. We have a lot of polymer components in there. You do have a polymer hammer, for example. And that's pretty much, again, mostly polymer, metal springs, things like that, metal trigger bar, but a combination of both. The gun will ship with this really cool looking 30-round magazine. Now, in typical Mac fashion, this magazine malfunctions on me every single time. And we've done tests with different types of ball ammunition, and it always appears to be on the same round in the magazine. If you load 15 rounds in it, right around the 12th round fired, it'll malfunction on that 13th round. And it's consistent, and it's malfunctioning. It doesn't matter if we're using Norma ammunition. We have some Norma 9mm out here today. And it doesn't matter if we're using Federal ammunition, which we also have out here today. Both of these, and pretty much every 9mm ball round I've put through the gun, I continuously have problems with this magazine. So it's likely just a bad magazine, but this speaks to modern manufacturing. Even with Beretta, and this is an Italian-made magazine, it doesn't seem like the quality's there anymore. But when I switch to using just standard Model 92 magazines, I have no issues with malfunctions whatsoever. So I'm blessed with a 30-round magazine that's utterly useless, and I'm left using the 15-rounders. Now, I could buy another one of these and see if it works better than this one. I know the comment section are going to be blown up with, I've never had a problem with my 30-round magazine. Again, just my luck. That's just how things shake out for me. Shooting the gun is, it's comfortable. It's a comfortable little gun to shoot. Now, you'll notice I have an RMR on a slight riser mount here. I can't use the iron sights through it, but it works well with this little gun. And it is actually pretty accurate. We can shoot out to 150 yards just by holding the dot over the target's head and make hits all the way out to 150, even 200 yards with the thing, using 124 grain ball ammunition, either from Norma or from Federal. So shooting it it's pleasant. The triggers, people complain about the trigger. I wouldn't say the trigger's horrible on this thing. People talk about it being, creepy and nasty. It's just a little heavy. Gets to where it's going to break, breaks, and it has a little bit of over travel. I'll measure it and see what the trigger pull measures at. It's going to be slightly on the heavy side, but it's not a horrible trigger. It's not like I get trigger fatigue when I fire the gun. It is like a typical 9mm that has a large bolt. It's going to, that initial impulse is going to be for the gun to want to move abruptly, but then it kind of smooths out as it nears the end of its travel. It has less recoil, perceived recoil, than something like a 9mm Colt AR-15 conversion. I found those to be just jumpy as all get out. This isn't that punchy, isn't that jumpy. You just get that initial movement of the gun, and then it's kind of a smooth recoil impulse, and it's just pleasant to shoot for a 9mm simple blowback mechanism. So it comes back down to that question of $899, and is it worth the investment? In my opinion, no. I think at $899 full MSRP, the gun's overpriced for what it is. It's not something that is considered, in my eyes, as a modern 9mm carbine or whatever caliber you choose to pick it up in, 40 Smith & Wesson, 45 ACP. It's just not a modern carbine. It's pleasant to shoot. It's fun to shoot. My kids enjoy shooting it. It's a great range toy, and there's nothing wrong with that. We've done a whole video on that. You can buy guns that are just purely for fun. They don't have to serve some tactical purpose. This would be pretty low on my priority scale. If I was looking for a 9mm, sub-gun type firearm to defend myself with, I would look more towards something that's a little bit more full-featured. This is the B&T SPC. It has a hydraulic recoil buffering system in it. It's simple blowback, but it has QD points all the way around it. It's just a more sophisticated firearm. Granted, it's more expensive, but there are other firearms out there that are less expensive, something like the Scorpion Evo or guns like that, that would serve you better, in my opinion, for something like home defense, self-defense, things like that. But this gun could certainly perform that role without any issues whatsoever. I just think that it's overpriced for what it is. All right, guys, I look forward to the comments down below. I hope you enjoyed today's video talking about the CX4 from Beretta. And if you guys have some differing opinions based upon your experiences with the gun, I look forward to reading those in the comments down below. If you'd like to support us here at the Military Arms channel, please consider becoming part of our Patreon family. There is a link in the video description below. Also, right here on YouTube, you got that little join button underneath the video player you're watching right now. Mash that join button, and you can support us right here on YouTube. And last but not least, guys, please swing by and check out coppercustom.com. Thank you for 14 years of support. We'll talk to you guys soon.